Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I, on behalf of NetApp, welcome you all to the webinar on the recent trends emerging in apprenticeships and the way forward. Recent reports launched by NetApp on apprenticeship hiring outlook H1 2021 and the Stipend Primer Report 2020 brought out some fascinating trends emerging and also highlighted the area of improvement for effective implementation of apprenticeships. Pandemic did have an impact on apprenticeship engagement, but did not dampen the employers' sentiment. There's a 33% net positive outlook for apprentices, hiring with 46% of employers having intent to engage with apprenticeship. Well, this survey was done in the last quarter of the last calendar year. Having said that, yes, there could be some impact with the current situation, but this is what the trends had showed, during the survey. Major reasons cited are to offset the scarcity of workforce due to pandemic, increased demand for the essential goods and services, and also to optimize the talent cost by investing in talent creation. 78% of the employers find apprentices highly productive. There's a gender neutrality stated by 31% of employers in hiring apprentices, making way for women to take up apprenticeships in male-dominated job roles and the roles emerging in the services sector. In fact, services sector continues to make progress in engaging with apprentices, though still behind the manufacturing sector. Even agriculture sector is emerging with a positive outlook for hiring apprenticeship. The pandemic and its impact has led to 54% of the employer to either stay away or tone down their apprenticeship engagement. The most glaring shortcoming are that 26% of the employers did not see value in apprenticeship and 22% of employers weren't aware of the system and mechanism of implementation, which states the gap between the intent and the reality. There has been a linear growth in the stipend paid out to the apprentices, which stood out at an average of 12,200 in 2020 and is expected to have a steady increase of 3% in 2021. Interestingly, education and e-com emerged as a high-paying sectors, 31 and 34% respectively, surpassing the manufacturing sector, which pays handsome stipends. Comparisons between pre-COVID and post-unlocking, which is till September of last year, all sectors are paying high stipend except for your hospitality and tourism. We will deliberate on these trends and the way forward to overcome the shortcomings in the system and build on degree-linked apprenticeships under the new education policy, which sets the tone for apprenticeship in the 21st century. Today, we have with us a diverse panel comprising of Ms. Sidhu Avin, the head of HR for Praxis Home Retail Limited. It's a future retail organization. And along with her, we have Mr. Tushar Desai, Director Talent Acquisition, FIS Global, a leading fintech organization. Both of them comes with 20 years of diverse and rich experience in the field of human resources. Ritika Gauri, head of Numero Uno, was supposed to join us, but due to personal emergency, she won't be joining us today. Welcome both of you, and thank you for being part of the session to share your views on the trends in apprenticeships. We look forward to your insights and recommendation to make apprenticeships effective.
Thank you, sir. Happy to be here. Oh, thank you.
Great. Welcome, both of you. So let me ask, let me start with Sindhu first. Sindhu, my question to you is, what's your opinion and your views on the current apprenticeship system since the last reform happened in 2014?
More that I think about it, more inclusiveness definitely has happened. The spectrum has gotten wider with BSc and engineering and some non-engineering elements as well. And this whole tag about its conventionality of apprenticeship not being formal courses, that element got a little wiped out, I should say, completely. And there's more enriching professions being looked at in the apprenticeship schemes. I think apart from that, this whole 2.5 to 10, the whole spectrum of number of employees in comparison to the number of apprenticeships that you could have has also opened up more opportunity, is what I would say. as an organization, when we took it on, Sumit, we took it on pretty late. Okay, we took it on in 2019, and we were in our learning year, if I were to say it that way. We were on our learning year on how to work this out. And of course, whatever happened environmentally with the pandemic happened. But yes, our learning curve, it actually gave us a little time. We didn't have to worry about the 10. We started with the 2.5, slowly catching up. And the portal was immensely helpful. So
Great.
that happened, and that was really good. So these are some of the things that I can think of in the change element.
Okay. Tushar, what's your opinion? With your diverse experience that you have, what is your take on the current apprenticeship system in India?
Well, I think Sindhu made the right noises around it in the sense, there is a little bit of an apprehension, at least in the IT industry side of it, and that's what I see and hear from some of my peers as well on the IT, both the product and the services side of it, right? But I think with the government backing it, anything can be successful if the government of the day backs it, right? Um, but we are still a little behind from a world labor index perspective. I was just going through an ELO report, International Labor Organization report around this, and in India, it is still, despite of this push, we are still about just 0.1% of the hireable workforce, which is being considered for apprenticeship, right? And whereas the world participation on an average is at around 4%, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and that's what I think the government is trying to do. I think they need to do a little bit more from a push perspective, right? Of course, the pull is there and obviously you will speak through the pull that is there in the Apprenticeship Act in the recent changes. But I think from a push perspective, I think they need to have a near-term as well as long-term policy in place, right? Because it's easy to, just go along with the wave, and then once it ebbs out, everybody is again going back to the conventional way of hiring, because that's easier, more accountable system of evaluating talent, right? And that's my opinion, because we are yet to start with. See, I am one of those organizations, right, which is still apprehensive about engaging this workforce. And as we go through our discussion today, I'll tell you why so. Why is it even more restrictive for us at FIS?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, we'd love to hear your perspective, because that's the whole idea, was to let to understand the perspective of an employer, of your apprehensions, and what are the barriers which currently you go through, be it on the mindset, be it on the organization side, be it on the regulation side, and how do you think we will be able to overcome these concerns around these parameters, so that organizations like yours, or I would suggest organization in the fintech space, could come forward and take apprentices. Moving on to the next question, Sindhu. In the survey, it came out that it's the technical knowledge, the soft skills, and willingness to learn are the preferred skill set while hiring apprentices. What are your views on this? And would you like to add any of your points that you would look for when you are hiring apprentices?
Okay, so with the little experiences that we've had in the year 2019, I'll pretty much base the conversation on that. Technical knowledge for us is a huge piece, Sumit. Now, when I say technical knowledge, I'll talk about two categories of people that we really look at hiring, and we're constantly in the lookout for. Are fitters. We work in the furniture industry. Every time you buy a product, you need to go to the customer's house and fit it really well. So there is a skill to be developed slowly and to be learned in that. So an apprenticeship is a good thing in this space as well. But the learning has been, yes, we've looked at technical skills, but that's also not a very available out there, ready to join the workforce at an apprenticeship level. Also because some of these, for want of a better way of putting it, I think some of these are very traditional occupations. You work in a particular group and you work in that environment, and people love to kind of stay there, probably work 20 days and don't have to do this whole, punch in every day and do your leaves and, all of those things. So we did struggle a little bit in these technical skills, but that's one of the top that we looked at. The other hiring that we did primarily was, of course, for the sales team, the front end sales team. And this was fairly easy one to get. We weren't looking at technical skills. We were looking at soft skills. We were looking at a significant amount of willingness for someone to understand that you do need to be on your feet pretty much 8 or 9 hours a day. So there's a lot of standing involved and a lot of excitement that you need to build into yourself. So we looked at a lot of high energy, high energy kids, what I would say when I look at the apprentice. And that was a good hire that we've had. We've had some real successes in those hires, I must say.
Fantastic. Okay.
And they've come on. And then we've had a transition where they came on board. So those were very good. So technical, though we looked at, we were not able to really find so many. But in the soft skills domain and the customer associate profiles that we looked at, we were able to find, we were able to train and convert them to full-time employees. So apart from that, like I said, willingness to be looking at a sales profile and standing an 8-hour day was something that we actually frankly opened up and told them, this is what it entails. Do you know that this is really going to be part of your everyday, week on week activity? Willingness to chase targets. So that's another thing that one had a conversation about, where they're willing to be trained on the same, which worked out very well, had buddy systems in place. So those things worked well. So I must say. Additionally, I don't think we had any other. Okay, another thing I could bring in here is region to region. The kind of costs came in a bit of a challenge. So somebody, when we were trying to hire them in a Delhi versus we were trying to hire them in a Raipur or some other place, those basic costs came in as a challenge for us when we were trying to hire, and we had to obviously up the bar a little bit.
So Sindhu, I think the cost part of it is going to be my next question, okay, which is very common, I think. So I think we'll dwell on it. But it's good to hear that you were able to create the people for your organization in-house. Very heartening to see that your organization also absorbed these apprentices into full-time employees as well. So just for my interest, like what percentage of absorption happened in your from apprentices to employment?
Oh, we, like I said, we were in our start year. So we stuck to the 2.5 as being our mandate for the year. And out of which I think out of the 2.5, we would have, we didn't meet that number either. So we weren't, fully on. I think we would have converted about only 6 employees in that year's 12 or 14 that joined. We converted 6.
Oh, that's almost like 50% of them got converted.
Yeah.
Which is good, which is interesting to see that. Tushar, what's your opinion on it? What is it that you look for or you would look for when you start engaging for an apprentice? I think it will be essential for people to know, or it becomes all the more critical for people to know this, is because from a fintech, it's, the sector is still kind of warming up to the concept of apprenticeships. Our experience says that, yes, it's the NBFCs and some bit of fintechs have started showing interest and they started engaging with apprentices. But what are the traits that you would look for in a candidate if you were to hire or engage with apprentices in your organization?
Well, I was keenly listening to Sindhu because she is a consumer, whereas I'm an explorer still of this concept, right? And it's like window shopping. I'm in the window shopping mood right now, right? So obviously, and I'll make a commentary not only from an apprenticeship perspective, but also from any kind of fresher hiring, any kind of 0 to 2 year kind of hiring, and I'm wearing the hat of a TA person right now, right? A talent acquisition person right now. There's something that our education system, or as in the Indian education system, really needs to, and in multiple forums, SHRM, People Matters, etc., all the forums, people have been saying this pretty vociferously, that soft skills is something which is not taught naturally to us in our education system, right? People, it's an acquired skill over a period of time when people are in thick of work or they are doing offline training. Now, obviously, there are multiple tools to learn through, right? But it's not taught as a regimen, right? So in the 3 things that you kind of listed out in your question, right? Soft skills is something which is a definite marker for us, because India is a heavily services kind of a dependent economy, right? Obviously, manufacturing features there, but we are not China, right? So we should play by our strengths, is what I still feel, right? So that's one part. The third point, which you said, willingness to learn, I think that's a default. It's like you need to have that, right? If you don't have it, you shouldn't even apply through an apprenticeship or through a campus hiring or whatever. I mean, you shouldn't apply for a job, is what I feel, right? So that's a given, right? Now on the technical skills part of it, I think for us as in an IT professional, I'm telling you, right? Obviously, we'll need somebody who is smart at basic domain knowledge, right? Of whatever basic skills are, right? Like Java is the oil of IT industry, right? You'd
True.
expect it to know that. Obviously, Java, the conventional standard Java skill wasn't used a decade back, right? Full stack has come into play, and multiple other emerging technologies in UI, UX, and AI has come in play right now, right? Data science is a new buzzword, etc. Right? But Java, you should know, right? Basics of Java, right? It's like ABCD, you should know before you start writing a book, right? So
Mhm.
it's so these are some of the things which we will definitely explore, right? And we, as in, I'm speaking for all of IT industry, not only
Sure,
FIT, right?
sure. Uh, Also, let's talk about the digital skills. I just want to dwell a little bit more on this particular skill set that organizations look for. It's come across that digital skill is the most sought after skills today during the COVID, time. Sindhu, specifically yours, which is not a very technical or an IT centric job. What's your take on the digital skills and how does it become more relevant to your industry? You're on mute, Sindhu.
All right, sorry about that. So not so much from a in-depth and usage of it, but definitely the basics. Being able to log in simple and straight and get your attendance done, or how do you go about doing everyday basic things. Learning is completely on the app. So the
Mhm.
entire learning piece, the entire product learning piece is on the app. So to be able to maneuver, get in, do an assessment, understand your report and see where you need improvement, although the trainer will definitely tell you. So that's basic digital stuff. You are a product expert or a customer associate on the floor, and there's a customer who definitely wants to know more information about something. So then, how do you log into the systems and show him if that particular product is not here? How do you log into Endless Island, show him, okay, we have the product not. So each of these basic usages is very much a high requirement. It's non-negotiable. Now, apart from this, we also use Salesforce. So by default, he's got to be able to log in and say, I've followed up on the opportunity, or it's a closed one, or it's whichever way you go. They do need it every day. And once they get into the system, like full on, absolutely into the system, and they grow into the system, they need to know SAP. They are working on SAP. They will check where inventory is. So basic utility, non-negotiable, even if you're doing a sales profile.
Okay. What about your Tushar? Like it's assumed that being in a technology organization, digital skills are a must, and it's like a must to have skills. But how do you assess like the technical skills? Would you consider digital skills under technical skills, or do you want to differentiate? And how the digital skills get utilized at your workplace?
Right. So if I can just revisit what I spoke about in a prior question is, obviously technology has a very short shelf life, right? 2 to 3 years, and what you are currently doing, suddenly becomes marginally or completely irrelevant, right? Depending upon what you are doing, right? Obviously, if you were to look at some of the emerging technologies, and I did touch upon some of them, UI, UX,
Yeah.
AI, data science, stack per se, full stack developers, etc., etc. Right, DevOps for that matter, for an organization like ours, right, where we own the data server and we own the application as well, right? So the
Yeah.
DevOps piece is vast, right? It's not a bridging role that
Mm.
happens, right? So we will definitely be looking at strong fundamentals around those, right? It
So they
cannot be
do
compromised.
constitute part of your technical skills that you look for.
Yes,
right? And that's
Yes,
exactly what you stated. That's like it's a must to have those skills that you're looking for. So for you, at default, digital skills becomes the essential skill and the technicals that you need to look for.
absolutely, absolutely. The functional skills is something which is a very exploratory kind. I'm not dismissing them, but the technical skills is something which is much more hard, and you need to sweat a lot to get those people in, right?
Yeah. My next question to both of you is, and I think this is something which Sindhu, you were talking about, and concern that you expressed about the cost part of it, and in the survey itself, it came across that about 27% of the employees cited that compensation as a major reason or a challenge or a concern for hiring the apprentices. It's that although there were about 34% of them expressed that they find it challenging to hire apprentices, which was much lesser than as compared to the previous report of H2 2020, which stated 59% employees had challenges. So which means the lesser employees are now, finding it challenging to hire apprentices. But even amongst those challenges, it's the compensation part comes out to be the major one. So apart from the cost, or if you want to dwell more on the cost part as well, what apart from the cost are the challenges that you find in hiring apprentices, and how do you overcome them?
So, okay, apart from costs, if I were to look at it, so even on the portal, for example, I mean, you'll have like a whole host, obviously, of the applications that come in, but I find it most difficult to even do a basic filter. So it's like a basic hygiene filter. So even a location filter, because I mean, you'll be looking for it in Surat, and you'll have Bihar applications, and you have a frustrated
That
regional HR over there
mismatch.
who's saying, yeah, so there's just no way for you to do it except to physically go through it. That I think was one of the things that really slowed us down in the initial phases, because we were gathering our own wits about how do we overcome something like that. And as a result of that, Sumit, another thing that happened is when you found one particular apprentice, suddenly it became a reference scheme. One will refer another, and I have a cousin or I have a friend and I have someone in my community. It became like that, and therefore our focus also on the system per se to be going through those apprenticeships. Then we would finally tell them, you still have to apply over there, because otherwise we will not be able to take you in. So
Take
things
them through.
like
That's the process.
so to take you in at all into the process. So these kind of basic things we struggled with initially, I must admit. Yes, it took us a little while to actually gather around and how do we go about enabling that. Of course, we've hounded everybody with question and answers, and everyone's been supportive, but still at the end of the day, it took a little while. So apart from cost, that was one factor. That
Okay. But Sindhu, what do you have to say about the preference for the people? When you're hiring an apprentice, and if you were to hire somebody for an employment, it's seen that the preference is always for the employment. So convincing the people for apprenticeship was a challenge for you?
Yes, absolutely. And particularly in the particularly where we needed the carpentry skills, like I was saying, like for the fitters, where we were actually going out and saying, because okay, so another reason for looking at it was also they take time to train also. So we said, okay, let's hire them as apprentices. They will get trained, to understand each of the fitments, and we will get them trained, and then definitely that's a natural and progressive way to go about things. But it didn't really necessarily work out in that manner, because everyone whom we did find in that actually said, I'm not okay with this kind of a payout. Okay, number one. And number two, if I have to then finally do this, can't I just be on employment then? Let me at least get the other benefits. Why will I not, get that?
True.
So in the technical piece, it was difficult, Sumit, for sure.
So how did you overcome? Does the problem continue to exist, or is there a way that you have been able to overcome, or still in the process?
I don't think we found an answer to that. And then also with the coming of the pandemic and an absolute hiring freeze, I don't think we've actually really been able to answer that yet. I think perhaps when it opens up next, is probably we have to revisit how we solve it.
Yeah, I think that's a problem which exists everywhere across industries. It's always a preference for the employment, but these candidates of the youth need to understand that if you really want to get into the organized employment, and if you really want to accelerate your career, have a good career, I think apprenticeship is the best way to make career of your own interest rather than just compromising it, on it. Yeah. Tushar, what would be your possible, or what do you anticipate that possible challenges could an organization or the industry where you operate could face while hiring apprentices?
So not so much so from a cost perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can assure you and the rest of the participants on today's call, from an IT perspective, I don't see cost as a big bottleneck. From
You are
whatever
asking the compensation sector, right?
yeah. And but it's the apprehensions on both ends of the spectrum, right? The one which Sindhu rightly articulated, right? I mean, for an apprentice, he or she would IT organizations, and it's an arguable statement, but they do have a very sweet benefit suite, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not doing a comparative over here, but I'm saying a very sweet, very hospitable benefit suite. So, and that's more towards FT employment, right? And it attracts a lot of contracts and variable workforce even today in the IT organizations. And all of the IT organizations have a significant percentage of variable workforce, right? So one of that's the biggest pull factor. If you become a FT, you will be eligible for XYZ benefits, etc., etc. So full-time employment always is the big sugar candy, if I can put it that
Mm-hmm.
way, right? But I'll tell you, and I'll speak specifically from my organization or my industry fintech perspective, right? We are paranoid as far as data is concerned. Paranoid, right?
Okay.
Just getting into one application needs at least 3 or 4 gates and 3 or 4 different kind of 15-digit passwords to be put in and all of it, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
can't even explain the pain that I go through on a daily basis, right? I mean, I would not really call it as a pain, but it's an effort, right?
Okay.
The second point, which is more critical towards our discussion today from a IT product organization perspective, is unlike a services. Again, this is a very arguable statement, but unlike a services organization, we hire for the life cycle, right? We hire for PDIS, product development implementation support, right? That's why in the beginning of it, and obviously the other participants weren't there, but I told you, like in FIS, it's very common for you to see high tenured employees, right? Because then they get attached to that particular product or that particular solution through its life cycle, right? Even at 5 years, a developer can get exposed to the architecture, right? In
Mm-hmm.
services organization, you may spend 16 years and you may not get exposed towards the architecture of that particular this thing, right? So what I'm trying to give you as a nuanced view over here is apprenticeship, or for that matter, even internship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really work. It's not really clicked in my organization as yet, because the apprehension from the business side of it is, oh, I'm spending an X. It's not about cost. My time is going, my effort is going, right, towards getting XYZ person to up to speed towards my product ideology, right? And I don't know whether this person will then scale up to it, will clear off the eventual hurdle before I pick him for a FT job or not, whether he or she will stay with me or not, right?
But Tushar, help me understand this, because if all the organizations have the similar kind of an apprehension,
Hmm.
right? If they're not forthcoming in experimenting, and it's not something which is, you are the first one to do with their organizations, at least in the ITES space, or apprenticeship as a concept has been tried and tested in our country for at least about 60 years now. And over last 5 years, definitely, there has been a tremendous, I would say, that the system has evolved very rapidly. But if the organizations like yours would tend to be always be apprehensive about it, how do you think you will be able to overcome the talent issues, or talent related overcome the talent related issues, largely in terms of the availability of people? You have to the hiring, I mean, the high talent cost, which you end up paying, because you being in a talent acquisition, you would realize that talent acquisition is definitely much expensive than talent creation. Yes, it does need an investment in terms of effort and time, but it pays off in long run. So if you will not be forthcoming, how do you expect to overcome these talent related issues?
I agree with you, Sumit. I think now is the time to be a little bold, right? And I'm speaking in the present right now, right?
Sure.
The world has what is AI? AI is predicting the future, correct? I mean, in simple
True.
layman's term, none of the AI tools or systems or robots or whatever it is were able to predict what's going to hit us in March 2020. None of them in the world, right? And we all suffered because of that. 2020 was a year of sufferance beyond doubt, right? Now, what you're seeing right now, at least in the quarter one, majority of the quarter, and that's why I said I'm speaking in the present, right? Is there's a lot of pent up demand
Yeah.
for the IT industry. It's on fire, right? Just look at the action in the IT industry, right? And that's where, if you would say, even from a conventional standpoint, right? Can you imagine doing 100% of your interviews virtual, no personal interactions or introductions per se, right? Just about 2 years back, my absolute simplest of the hiring managers would have scoffed at it. So are you mad? I really need to meet the candidate, right? I need to see the body language. I need to see the person I'm interviewing, right? Today
Hmm.
it's not, right? So everybody's done that kind of uh, uh, adaption or adoption, whatever you want to call it as, right? And I think it's time that we look at all kinds of sources and all kind of avenues at our disposal, right? To
Mhm.
ensure that we don't leave out anything in the in the market for others to experiment and be successful at, right? It's
Yeah.
a war for talent right now. I'm telling you, in IT
Absolutely.
industry, the worst job would be to be the TA leader, right
Okay.
now, right? So
Okay.
that's why we are open and we are bold, and that's why,
Yes.
in fact, we are speaking with team leads as well.
No, really appreciate your opinion on this, and we do look forward that, and we do hope that your organization gets into apprenticeship and sets an example for the industry, and many more organizations take up apprenticeship. Coming to the next question, one of the very interesting facts that came about was on the diversity or the gender part of it. So 41% of the employers prefer hiring male apprentices, which still happens to be the largest part of it. 28% prefer women apprentices, and 31% have a neutral approach. So, what's your take on hiring women apprentices, and how does that add value to the organization? So, I would love to hear about, if you are hiring apprentices or women apprentices in your organization, is diversity the only agenda that's there on the mind, or you really find that the women, adds value to the organization and that particular job? And where I'm coming from is that in some of my interactions with the employers, and this I'm largely talking about from the manufacturing side of it, they said we prefer to hire women for the reason that, that there's a lot of discipline on floor. There's a lot of discipline in women itself. They're very regular, they're very punctual. At the same time, they're very focused. They're not very distracted, and they're very productive because of their focused approach towards the work. Very interestingly, one of my very first customers whom we dealt with gave me a very interesting example or an anecdote for Satte Pe Satta for movie. I'm not sure whether, I hope all of you would have seen that movie. And he said that there were 7 brothers staying there, and there is one woman who comes in their life. And how does that change the entire lifestyle of the people, where people were really living wildly, there was no discipline, but how that one woman who comes in their house makes those 7 guys disciplined. There was more routine. I mean, they had a proper structured way of living. So that was a very good anecdote that gentleman shared with me. But what's your take on women apprenticeships in your organization? Sindhu, would you want to go first on that?
To be very, very, very honest here, Sumit, we didn't really wear this filter for one set of the hiring at all. So when I talked about the fitter community, we never received any women applicants either, honestly speaking. So 90% of the time it came by reference after a particular point of time, and every reference that came was also a male candidate. So to very, very honestly, no, we haven't received too many applications at all. Obviously because of the nature of the work. Let's be focused there as well. Now, given the fact that in the other roles also, frankly, this entire lot that we did hire this time, we didn't have any, but also because we didn't receive many applications also for the same. So this was our take. Sorry about that, but no, it wasn't a filter per se as used or anything like that. It just happened that way.
But then you also mentioned that you hire for even sales profiles as well.
Yes, but even those were by default in this particular one was always always male candidates hired, male
So do you still
applicants.
feel that where the roles are not really gender driven, but do you think that still that the certain roles which are typecasted, or these is only meant for the guys and so the women cannot do it? Because I can see that shattering, at least in the manufacturing sector. I do see that women are deployed even on this as a CNC operator at the machines. They're doing all sorts of work. So is that still that or is it only that women did not apply, or do you think
So
that
honestly,
the roles
no,
are
no.
still typecasted? You don't find a women carpenter.
I honestly haven't found one. So even among the workforce that exists on a full-time role, we really haven't found too many applicants for the same. So
But
at
that
least
means,
as far as this
but
role.
you're open for it, is it?
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. There's no cause. So as far as being championing the cause of it, definitely we are. We even looked at a time where we were actually maintaining our counts to be making sure that we did hire, and of course, all benefits mutual to all of them. But it's just that yes, one is open, no doubt about that. Has If there were to be an opportunity, we'd love to be making that shift along with the person concerned. But unfortunately, now is not when it's happened. That's all.
Okay. What about your Tushar? I mean, your industry is such where should be open. So I'm sure you would be having, women folks as well. So what's your, thought process when you are hiring women? And would that you will like to apply the same logic when you would be hiring women apprentices?
Well, even before I can answer to this question of yours, I picked on that point which you said. Women workforce really making the mark in the manufacturing setup. And I was just talking to one of my colleagues, and he kind of pointed out in a company by the name of Anchor Panasonic, right? We must have
Mm-hmm.
used their switches and all. 85% plus workforce is women, right?
Yeah.
So just to let you know, I mean, and what we within the IT industry, I think we are and again, this is a arguable statement if I can put it that, but I think we are the torchbearers as far as inclusion and diversity is concerned, right? I personally believe, right, because uh, this century is all about experiential economy, right? You have made billions and trillions through the Airbnbs and Googles of the world, right? So um, from that perspective, I being a leader for multiple inclusion and diversity councils, including and NFIs is a recipient of multiple awards around LGBTQ and around disabilities, which we in India call as differently able councils, right? I can say for that for surety that we don't really limit ourselves when we call it as diversity or inclusion, right? We don't limit ourselves towards women as a as a vertical, right? We include a lot of we broaden it out even further, right? In fact,
Yeah.
and we were, I think, I believe, and again, this is something which I have a FI's way of thinking, 15 years here. That's why. So I can only give you FI's examples most often or not. But almost a decade back, I think we almost, when I was associated with our BPO division at that point in time, we almost cracked a deal with NAB, National Association for Blind, in getting in a set of people from their end to do specific work for us, right? And obviously, those were not the days of Cortana and Microsoft and all of it, right? That was Braille laptops and Braille desktops, and it was a lot. I there was a lot of an effort which was to be put in, right, without voice commands and all of it, right? So obviously that didn't play out the way we wanted to, but the thought was novel, right? Because even the contact person from NAB actually said, you'll have zero attrition and 100% productivity,
Mm-hmm.
100% attendance, right? So I think we should be looking at diversity equals to survival now in the next few decades to come, right? If not, then you will not be able to survive. Not be able to survive this next couple of decades at least, right? So I believe we are very strong in that. When we, in fact, as a talent acquisition leader, I report back metrics on my diversity percentages, and it goes beyond the gender metric, right? It goes towards LGBTQ. We are free from Article 377, right?
Mhm.
So LGBTQ socially not, but legally yes, right? And then obviously disabilities is a big piece for us, right? And post COVID, it's a much bigger piece, because now we don't really want people to come to office, right? People can take it from wherever they are, right? For all
Yeah.
the rest of their careers with us, right? So I think, to your pointed question, I would definitely be looking at a 50-50, if not more, right?
Great. Great. Thank you so much. I think that was quite an elaborate, explanation on, or for women hiring, or I would say diversity, in your,
Diversity.
in your workforce. Uh, Coming to
So
my
just to
last question.
continue,
Sorry, please. No, you're saying
sorry,
something.
just wanted to add on. Because I
Absolutely.
mean, since Tushar actually set the platform for that, this is happiness quotient is the fact that among the ones that among the folks that we did take on as apprentice, we had two of the specially abled folks being involved as well. The only
Okay.
thing that didn't happen over there was too many of the women folks applicants, but
But there was
otherwise it was a
diversity.
lovely. There was diversity, absolutely.
Okay, great. Coming to the last question to both of you, and Sindhu, this one specifically for you. I think it makes more sense because consider current times. The retail industry has suffered a major setback during this pandemic. What's your piece of advice to deal with apprenticeship training to tide through these testing times? How do you maintain continuity, and how do you kind of, as I said, like how to tide through these testing times for continuing the apprenticeships?
Okay, I will take that. So this may sound a little theoretical right now, given the fact that we
Mm-hmm.
don't have a lot of hiring happening right now. But one of the learnings that we've had over this pandemic has been the fact that we really need to be looking at and developing local talent. So we
Localization,
definitely
okay.
need to be focusing. Absolute localization is something that we really need to push for. Given the fact that when you try to reopen the store, you're waiting then for personnel to be coming in from wherever they are, and both for both the employee also, it was a difficult activity to be traveling out, with all the restrictions that happen. So yes, localization is something that we're looking at in a big way. And a movement now to understand how can we have multi-skilling happening within the same kind of roles that we're taking up. So if you are doing sales as well, but what else can you do? Can you also do cashiering? So these are the multi-role elements that we've been looking at in the recent set of discussions. Given the fact that we're looking at a second wave right now, and we're not really quite sure how long or how large this impact is going to be as compared to the previous year, but we
Yeah.
still are readying ourselves to brace, for this new one as well. That's kind of in our face right now. But definitely, yes, we want to work now with locally available talent is like a given, making sure that we're working on that.
Fantastic. So it's all like vocal for local, which we've been
It
hearing
is. It
about
is.
it.
Yes. Experience has taught us that's definitely a good way to really work around
But
it.
that makes you more self-reliant, as also what I've seen, that how do you build up the local supply? How do you get them to I would say, how do you match the local supply with the local demand, which is currently been missing. So I think this is a good concept that you're experimenting with.
And like I was saying a little while earlier when we were talking about the cost factor, so many times where we're trying to hire in smaller locations, I mean, they're not even smaller actually. Surat is not a small place, but we really had difficulty finding talent there, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we were not focused on then trying to look at it locally. The minute we started looking locally, we managed to find a lot more trainable folks, and then we got them on board. So that was a learning, I guess, that we took on, and we said, okay, this is going to be our plan forward.
Sure. Tushar, what's your opinion? How to maintain continuity, or how do you think that apprenticeship makes all the more sense during the, such testing times? And how do you maintain continuity? Any piece of advice that you would like to share?
See, I personally believe testing times or not, I think apprenticeship, and that's why we are looking at it. Again, I'm saying I'm speaking like an explorer and not like a user.
Sure.
Right. So one of the things that you see, and I'll take you back to your second question, right? That hunger, right? The level of hunger differs in all experience levels, right? an apprentice will always come with a much deeper hunger to work and learn, right? I think during any testing time, it's a leap of faith that an organization really needs to make, right? That's the punt, right? On some of these youngsters or some of these freshers, if I can put it that way, right? Who can possibly play a very well balanced foil towards any kind of spike in attrition or any kind of say disruption in normal operations or something like that, right? And it's a mix of all answers that I want to give you. A diverse country like ours doesn't need to worry about what's going to be the attendance on Diwali or Christmas or something like that, right? Ever, right? You'll always have some or the other community really playing the backup foil, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that's where possibly apprenticeship is not that silver bullet, but it's a part of the larger solution, right? In testing times or even otherwise, right? That's what I feel.
Great. Thank you so much for your opinion. I think it's a very valuable for both the industries, specifically IT, ITES, which is kind of gearing up for apprenticeship, and retail, which has been there doing apprenticeship for a long time, but is going through a major setback during the pandemic. Guys, if there are any questions for the panelists, please do put in the chat box. We'll love to answer them. There are a few questions coming in, but I think those are very technical questions. I'm not sure whether we can answer them. But one of the questions that's come in is that this comes in from Anshul Agnihotri. He says, can we consider any apprentices as time employee? What are the legal challenges we may face? You really cannot have apprentices consider them as an employee. Apprentices as a trainee, separate regulations. They have to undergo a training process to create their capabilities. As an organization, you have to invest in the person, create capabilities which are essential for your organization for that particular job role, but they cannot be treated as an employee. They are an apprentice. And yes, but once you feel that the training is over, they've shaped up well, you can absorb them. And that's exactly what Sindhu mentioned, that how she's been able to absorb 50% of their apprentices into the employment post completing the training. So that's what I could mention there. Okay, so I don't see very many. I think there are more on the technical questions coming in. Thank you so much, Sindhu, and thank you so much, Tushar, for your time. It was really pleasure hearing both of you, your thoughts, your experience, and of course your intention, Tushar. And I really hope that your organization gets into it. I think it's just a matter of once you get started, I'm sure there's no looking back to it. For sure. That's my experience says it. But yeah, thank you so much, both of you. And we do look forward to your opinions in future as well. Thank you once again.
Thank you for hosting us, Sumit, and the entire team from Team Lease. Thank you, Sindhu. Have had a great time here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, all our audience. And the reports that we mentioned would be available on our website. So you can go to Team Lease Skills University website or the netapp.in website. All the latest reports are available. Thank you.